This is the CMU EDUcast, all about issues and new ideas in education in Thailand. I'm Chris Mangum. This week, we take a look at Thailand's new English language requirements for college graduates. How are Thailand's teacher education programs responding? What are university students from all disciplinary areas doing to meet these new universal criteria? Joining us today is Nuttanun Niwesworakarn, who works in the front lines as an English language lecturer at Northern Thailand's Chiang Mai University Faculty of Education. Welcome.
Hi. Oh, yeah. Hi.
Welcome. How are you today?
I'm good. Very good. How are you too?
I'm great. I'm doing just great.
Okay.
So it's you are really on the front lines of this work. You are teaching English teachers how you're teaching English teachers English.
Yes. Right now, I'm lecturer of English teaching program, Faculty of Education, Chiang Mai University.
Who are your students?
My students are the one who going to be English teacher. They are undergraduate student majoring in English teaching program.
So these are young undergraduate students.
Yes, undergraduate student.
And they're going to become English teachers.
Yeah.
And your job is to make sure that they can teach English.
Yes.
And do a good job of that. That's a big job.
Really big job because the standard set very high right now. We have to do many things to improve their English proficiency and speaking skill and teaching skills. We make a lot of things right now.
Now, English is not usually their first language. It's
Yes.
It's a learned language, and they're still learning English.
They're still learning English, and I think, from my perspective, their English proficiency right now is not good enough for teaching in school, in real school. So we have to improve them a lot.
Maybe their teachers did not speak English as a first language.
Yes. That's the problem right now. Actually, we have heard about Thai situation that Thai teacher cannot produce language. They cannot use English language to communicate in classroom. And their English proficiency are not high. So that's why Thai student cannot produce any language.
So I guess for me, it's a surprise as someone coming from an outside culture. Why is English so important?
For me, English is the way you can find knowledge. It's like a door. You know Thai language, you have only one door. But if you have another language, if you learn another language, you have many doors and you open to receive information, to know about things.
That's a beautiful
and
metaphor.
As you know, as we know, the updated knowledge are from Western country. They do research and they learn new things and they publish in English language. So we have to learn English language to update our knowledge all the time.
I see. So you'd say that the common language of knowledge production in the world right now, one of them at least, is English.
Yes.
And that's why it's important for them to be able to read, write, speak, and understand English.
Yes. And the situation in Thailand about English teaching, I think it is in concern because many years ago, around 4 years ago, the organization of government was assessed teacher, English, especially English teacher, about their English proficiency. So I talk about CFR because CFR is used to assess teacher proficiency and also student English proficiency right now.
CEFR is just what is the Common European
framework
what is
of
the
reference.
Of reference. So it's the Common European Framework of Reference, CEFR. And that's kind of an international standard it's like the metric system. For how well you speak a language.
Yes, this criteria is used to assess language learner proficiency, English proficiency, and these criteria divided into 6 levels. Start from A1, A2. A1 is very beginning, and A2, B1, B2, and C1, C2. C2 mean very proficient, very fluent.
So someone who's just learning a language,
yes.
Like me, speaking a little bit of Thai,พูดภาษาไทยนิดหน่อย maybe not even A1, right? Maybe below A1. Can it be lower than that?
Yeah, I think we can be lower than that.
So you
Just no word for just say hi and cannot communicate any other aspect.
Where is the bathroom? That's
something like that.
Yes.
And I talk about 4 years ago, English teacher in Thailand were assessed by these criteria. And do you believe it or not? Only 23, not percent, only 23 English teacher got C1 and out of 2,000.
Out of 2,000, so that's less than 1%.
Yeah.
It's about 1% of
1%, yes.
Yeah. So only 1% of the teachers are at a C1 level.
C1 level. And majority are below A2. That means majority got A1. They are English teacher and they cannot produce higher level of language. That's problem because a certified level of English proficiency is B1 for student. B1.
So B1 is the standard that you're looking for?
Yes. For non-English major students.
For non-English major students. So if you're going to teach mathematics or you're going to teach science, you need a B1
level.
Wow.
And B2 for English major.
Oh boy.
I know it is challenging. It's very challenging for Thai education right now.
So the new government standards for all teachers is that they have this level of proficiency.
Teacher Council released this policy. Teacher who want to be teacher, you must have at least B1 level. Yes.
Does this have an effect on people who may be proficient in their subject areas and might make great teachers but just don't really have the English?
I agree with that. I think it is not necessary. English is not needed for our disciplinary. Yeah. For example, Thai language teacher, why do they have to learn English language? Because they know well in their language, right? They teach Thai language and the nature of Thai language and English language is totally different from my perspective. But they have to learn English language. It does not make sense for me.
In my experience, I believe that learning any other language really is all about learning your own language. When I study French or I study German or I study Thai or Chinese, I'm learning those languages, but I'm also really learning about English more as I study that. Maybe it's because English has a lot of rivers running into it. Linguistically, it is based on Greek and Latin and French and all of these Romance languages and Germanic languages and Celtic languages are coming into English. So when you're studying other related languages, it helps you understand your own language. But when you study unrelated languages, on the linguistics tree, there is no connection, connection between English and Thai.
Yes, and just the way we place adjective is different. English we place the adjective in front of now, right? But for Thai language we place the adjective behind now. It's quite different, and I don't think that Thai language teacher gonna make it, gonna get A1. Yes.
All right. So we've got a problem of trying to get all these talented young people who want to enter a life of public service as teachers.
Yes. And I think the one who have very high Thai proficiency, they cannot be Thai teachers because they just don't know English language. Yes. And make them in concern, in trouble. I disagree with that.
How can we help them?
I think it's a big problem. First of all, the government and teacher council have to release new policy that flexible. It's very strict and I think it makes teacher in trouble. I mean non-major teacher in problem.
Is there a shortage right now in Thailand of teachers? Does Thailand need teachers?
Yes, still want teacher in urban area. So teacher is required in countryside area and they move to the city. Teacher who already teach in countryside, they move to the city. So new teachers have to teach in countryside. Yes.
Let's paint a picture here. You're 21 years old and you graduate from college, from CMU Faculty of Education. And before you can become a teacher, you have to take a test, right? You have to, what's that like? What test is this?
The test is about teaching profession. We call it teacherness test.
Teacherness. Okay. Yeah.
It sounds Thai, right?
Yeah.
Teacherness. And major knowledge, like English knowledge, Thai knowledge, and chemistry knowledge, something like that.
So you have your general knowledge.
General.
And also your pedagogical knowledge. Your pedagogical knowledge. And then also on top of that, another English test where you have to score B1, at least if you're not an English teacher. But if you are an English teacher, you have to score B2. Okay. So then you take these tests, and then what? What happens?
Then the government will release the name who passed this test, and then you will assign to the school. And very new teacher will be in countryside school, and
everyone's first job is in the countryside.
In the countryside. Most of them are in countryside school.
When you say the countryside, for listeners who may not really be familiar with Thailand,
like
what does that look like?
Countryside mean very far away from city. The school are in mountain or very far, and we cannot go there easily.
So maybe it would take maybe a day just to get to this village.
Many hours, 5 hours to go to school.
A very winding road through the mountains.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. So it could be very remote.
And there are many schools like this in Thailand. I think up to 10,000. 10,000 schools in Thailand. And the school is very small. There are only 10 teachers in school for some school.
Serving how many children typically?
Can be 10 students and up to 100, 200.
So it could be from 10 to a few hundred kids. I see.
And some school, like I went there, there are only 2 teachers and 30 students for all level, and one teacher teach all level and all subjects.
Wow. So you could have a class where you have a 7-year-old and a 17-year-old in the same class.
Not that much. In the same level, like primary, they learn together.
I see. So you would have at least high school together and primary together. That's still a lot.
That's problem because we don't have enough money to make it better. But we try a lot. The government try a lot to make it better, and we are in the process.
This is a universal problem across the world in developing and in industrialized nations. Everywhere in the world is a problem of finding enough teachers, finding qualified teachers, and then getting them to remote places where typically people don't have access to education. So it's always been a government project for every country to do this.
Yes.
But this one has such high standards to me. It seems like the standards in the United States are high for teachers. They're required to pass tests and to go through a major performance review before they can earn their certificate for teaching. And they're required to have a bachelor's degree and then really another master's degree before they can be hired by most public schools in most states. But in Thailand, it seems like you have almost the same standard. It's 5 years of undergraduate education, or is it 4?
4 years right now.
4 years, okay. And then, but all these tests that have to be done. And do they have to have practical teaching experience in schools?
Yes. For the curriculum, they learn in university for 3 years, for 4 years, and each year they have to go to school to observe the class and to have teaching experience. And the last year, the 4th year, they have to be in school for 1 semester to be like student teacher, or Thai people call pre-service teacher.
Pre-service teacher. We have the same word in the US, pre-service.
Okay.
Wow, so that is a lot. The standards are quite high for a person, and I can't imagine that a person doing this is going to be paid a lot of money to do it. You don't do this to make money. You do this for other reasons.
Yes, they spend 1 semester, no money for them in return. Yes.
So they spend 1 semester when they're a student working for free.
Yes, but they learn something instead.
How do they live during that time?
Parents, money.
Their parents. I'm sure all the parents out there will be very happy.
But it is a part of the curriculum. They learn something along the way. Yeah.
I see. So it's really just they're going to college for the last semester. That's a lot. That's a big commitment to make. And given everything that is required, are there enough students that want to do this, that want to become...
Yes. For my program, we accept only 30 students per year.
Only 30
students per year.
How many applicants do you have per year?
Around 500.
Wow.
Because we have no potential to produce a lot of teachers right now. Just improve 30 students to become a great teacher is very hard for us to do that because we have to improve their English proficiency, practice their teaching skills, and make them have more like teacherness in their life. That's what is the suitable word for describe teacherness?
I think that's a great word. I think that's a great word for teacherness. Yeah, I personally love that word.
Okay, that's great word. Thank you. So for my program, we have to do a lot of things for them, and we do the research. And we try to find new pedagogy or new way of teaching English and teach our students because we believe that new things are way better. New thing are better than the old one. And we see the problem from learning English in classroom. Right now, for Thai language learning context, especially English, students learn from textbook in class. That means if the textbook is not good, students learn bad thing from the textbook. And so we try to come up with the new idea that if we blend local context to the classroom, it would be great.
Yeah. Culturally responsive
Yes.
teaching versus just learning from some textbook from another culture, another world, really.
Yes. So from the textbook, we will see that all things about Western culture and they learn something they will not use in their daily life. For example, they learn about maple trees.
There are no maple trees
Yes.
in Thailand. You have to go to Canada for that, I think, at least.
Yes, and I don't know why they have to learn about this. They don't use it and how these knowledge benefit them in the future. The answer is no, right? So we try to blend local context, like the thing they already have, to be the materials, to be the content in their English language classroom. My team, lecturer in English teaching program, we are doing the research about locally based language teaching. It is what I said. We try to blend local context to English classroom. They learn English classroom through their own context. They learn about what they already know in English version. We are doing research, but we don't have result yet.
What are your research questions?
What is locally based language teaching? What is?
What is?
And
so even just defining what
Yes.
that could be, what that looks like. Right.
And then can locally based language learning improve student English proficiency? Yeah.
So
So-
first of all, what is it? And
Yes.
secondly, does it work?
Yeah, things like that.
So these are very elementary questions still.
These ideas inspired by our Dean, Associate Professor Keseda Sisuk. She concerned about local context. She thinks that a local context is valuable. They have to learn about their own context, about their own daily life, about what they have. And then, so I bring this aspect to English classroom.
That's amazing. And have you seen just anecdotally in your visits to these schools in faraway places in Thailand, have you seen differences between the old way of doing things and this approach?
I think it's at the very first beginning, it's good. I just try one period for a class in remote area, and they learn well. They remember vocabulary very fast because they're familiar with the context. And next time I talk about that word, they recall that vocabulary, and they remember the meaning of vocabulary in English language.
And obviously, it has more to do with their lives, and it's more integrated, so it's easier to relate to, I'm sure. So this is a major research effort right now from Faculty of Education to understand how to teach English in a culturally responsive way based on local culture, local values, local meaning. Are there any bridges that can't be gapped? Any problems with this? Because maybe there are things that you can say and think in Thai that are very difficult to express in another language. That there are no words in English for certain Thai ideas. And maybe it's the same way. It's difficult to express things that you can only say in English.
I think about this aspect too, and I always warn my student who will be English teacher in the future that you have to focus on communication rather than grammar. Teachers in the old days focus too much on grammar. If students produce ungrammatical sentence, they already fix. That's why students shy to speak. So we try to change the idea that let students produce, even it is ungrammatical, but it is understandable. That's good. That's very good for them. They dare to speak. And this is the aim of learning a language, just to communicate.
This is communicative language.
Yes,
and
communicative approach.
It's all about just using the language. It's not about grammar. But here's some strange tension. You have this CEFR, which is a lot about grammar, right? There's a lot of emphasis on grammar, on using verb tenses properly and conjugating, and all the technical, mechanical things of grammar are assessed as part of this. And on the other hand, you want students to learn organically, and you want them to be motivated with real-world, real-life, need-based language use. These two things, do they work together or do they work against each other?
I think it's work together, but communicative approach is the beginning of the process. They're familiar with the language. They use language and they feel free to use language. Then they will catch it up and they acquire language. When they grow up, they have confidence, motivation for language learning, and they can improve their grammar later.
That
I
makes
think
sense.
like that.
That makes a lot of sense.
Students right now, for example, for middle school or secondary school, they cannot speak because they never speak since they were in primary school because they're afraid of speaking. Teacher forced them to write. Actually, writing is, for me, is the last thing they have to learn. Students in primary school have to listen a lot and speak, and then reading is good as well, but writing is the last thing you can learn in high school.
A universal for language learning, at least, is writing comes last.
I feel like it's challenging, and we have many things to do. We have a lot of things to improve and to do for developing our education quality, especially English teaching in Thailand. And some teachers in Thailand right now are not flexible. They don't want to change the style they teach students. I see just two weeks ago, I see teacher, they are quite old. They teach like
we say old school, and we say old school meaning that it's like an old teacher in an old school that doesn't,
Yeah, like they teach using grammar translation method. It's very old, the old one. They have to change because right now we have new way of teaching. Like we can blend everything into classroom, and these new ways is related to student 21st century skills. But if you use grammar translation, that means yes,
17th century skills.
Yeah. Student will learn nothing about English language.
Right.
And language is practical. Why do you still teach about grammar? Yes.
I see. Were you an English teacher?
Yes, I have experience for 1 year in secondary school.
What was that like?
Oh, it's tough. This is the first time. That was the first time I teach in school, and I have to. I learned in university, and I think everything is ideal. Everything is beautiful and perfect. But when I was in classroom for the first time, I use English language all the time. Student silent and do nothing to me.
So it's hard. It's very hard.
It's very hard
to do. It's very hard work to do that.
So at that time they was in Matayom 2 or grade 8, but they cannot even pronounce the word, like pronounce the sounds of the word or pronounce the sound the letter. Mm-hmm. So I have to teach them from the very first beginning, from the pronunciation, and then move to reading and move to listening and speaking. Yes.
Wow.
And these also generally happen in Thai language learning.
Where was this? Where did you teach?
Can I say that? In Chiang Mai and North countryside in the city.
So you taught in northern Thailand?
Yes, yeah.
And was it a rural school or was it an urban school?
Urban school, but it is not famous school.
Wow, interesting. Very interesting. Well, thank you very much. We've been talking to Nuttanun Niwesworakarn, and who has been working to prepare English teachers for this new and quite difficult task of teaching English at a very high standard under a lot of pressure in places, very far away places. So congratulations on your work, on your research, and I wish the best to you doing everything that you're doing. Sounds great.
Thank you so much for being here, and I'm honored to talking with you.
Likewise.
Thank you.
Thank you.